Okay, gonna talk about philosophy. Now, we have a lot of these ancient philosophers, right? Like Socrates, Aristotle, and like Plato, and even more recent ones like Nietzsche. And we read the work that these philosophers have left behind, and we use those philosophies to we implement them into our lives, right? And they guide us a little bit, right? Now, there's no problem with this, okay? We have to learn. We have to learn from somebody. We have to take somebody's information. Somebody has to pass wisdom down to us in order to point us in a direction, right? But the point of this video is to warn you against putting too much emphasis on the work of anybody else, okay? So don't put too much emphasis on the philosophies that these people have left behind, because what that does is it clouds your perception, okay? It fills up all of your time, where you are basically spending all your time diving into the philosophies that these people have come up with, and you're not coming up with your own philosophies. You're not expanding on them, right? And that's the point here, is that, like, if you put these philosophies on a pedestal, it leads to a lack of original thought, right? Because you are literally wasting your time. You're spending all your time on someone else's work, and you're not creating your own work. So I mean, this limits your imagination. It limits the ceiling of your wisdom, right? And if you're not thinking out of these these predefined philosophies, we're never going to reach greater heights as a species, right? That's the point here, is that you need to, once you have the tools, once you've been given the direction, you need to go in your own direction. And if we all do that, what ends up happening is we end up there ends up being so much diversity of thought that we find the answers, okay? Now, whether those answers rise to the top, whether the cream rises to the top, that's a different argument. But if we all think about things on our own, again, that diversity of thought, it goes in every direction possible. And if we all do it sufficiently enough, I do think the cream will rise to the top. I do think we will pick out the most important things, the best philosophies, to which we then guide us to a better society, a better world. And that's the point of philosophy, right? We want to think about reality and think about ways that we can best change reality. Okay, so I mean, you can read books, but the thing is that you have all the tools you need to be a philosopher. We have formal philosophy degrees, right? We give our formal philosophy education. We have these, we give out degrees for people who study philosophy for years and years, but we don't give out degrees to people who come up with philosophies themselves, right? That doesn't really interest us. And it doesn't interest us because, we don't like to challenge the status quo, or even beyond that, we don't like new ideas most of the time in academia, right? And that's the problem with academia, is that it's like the battle between quantum physics and classical physics. People are so hesitant to move to this new model that we aren't. We're in effect, we're hindering our possibilities, because people don't want to give up this classical model of physics for the new models that are increasingly kind of turning away from that classical model. So everyone has the tools to be a philosopher. Again, okay, all you need is critical thinking, logic, and experience and observation. That's it. Everyone can do that. And as I said, the 21st century reality we live in, we have more trial and error data than any philosopher did before us, right? We have more information to work with, right? We have more wisdom and knowledge than any philosophers that came before us. And by extension, we can theorize that the greatest philosophers to ever live are alive right now. And that's an important thing, because again, we have more cumulative data than any previous philosophers had about these, failed states that we've observed throughout human history, right? So let your own philosophies develop naturally, okay? And what that'll do is, again, it'll expand that diversity of thought. if we zero in too much on these old philosophies, then we lose the ability to create new ones. And that's the thing, is that these old philosophies, they obviously didn't solve the problems efficiently, because if they did, we wouldn't have the problems. We wouldn't be looking for solutions to the problems in the world today. So if you're going to read books, just be careful about how much time you spend reading books versus how much time you spend writing books, right? How much time you spend coming up with your own original thoughts that you then share to people. Because if this ratio gets out of balance, we literally diminish progress. We literally sacrifice progress for basically running around in our old thought patterns, right? Again, pay attention to that ratio of learned philosophies to philosophies that you develop personally, okay? And if we do that, we will come up with better solutions to our 21st century problems, okay? Most of these great philosophers, they didn't live in the 21st century, okay? They have no idea what life is like with this technology that we have. And that brings up a cool point about the internet, okay? If you spend time reading philosophy books cover to cover, you're probably going to rehash the same thing over and over again, right? But if you just pick out the parts you want using tools like the internet, then you're going to more efficiently get the data you need, to expand your thought processes and to come up with these new philosophies. It's at the end of the day, the point of this video is just think for yourself, okay? Once you have the tools that you need to know that thinking for yourself is the best path for you in life, just kind of throw the books aside a little bit. Now, there's different purposes for books, okay? If you read books for entertainment, that's an entirely different thing, okay? And the thing is if you're reading books for entertainment, if you're reading like sci-fi books or something like that, that expands on your imagination. That's probably better for coming up with new philosophies than reading these old philosophers' books, right? And that's an important thing to recognize, is that it's the imagination that you need to expand upon. It's not these old philosophies that you need to keep digging deeper and deeper into. So if you're somebody that is always quoting old philosophers and you're never challenging them or even coming with anything new, there's never any new revelations that go through your head, there's never any enlightening thoughts, then it's because you're kind of running around in the old thought patterns, and someone has thought all that stuff already. And me personally, I found a lot of comfort and a lot of satisfaction in coming up with new revelations, right? And new enlightening thoughts that have come to me. And it's kind of the reason I have this YouTube channel. Now, I think the point of me making these YouTube videos is to give people a different way to think about things, give people my way, and in turn, I hope people give me their way of thinking, because again, it's that diversity of thought that allows us to come up with better solutions to problems. So just give that a little thought. Thanks for watching.